Hello and welcome, guys. Today we're going to be doing some pretty intense topics. Last night I got to be chill and I got to kind of do new messages from Aaliyah, and those messages were like calm and kind of like emotional, peaceful even. It was very like emotionally satisfying for me. But today we're going to talk about some hefty topics. Sorry, I need water. But yeah, so today what we're doing is we're going to be doing some channeled messages from Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. His birthday is actually the 15th. He's a Capricorn. But we're not really going to be focusing on just Martin. We're focusing a lot on the similarities and differences between their activism styles. So this reading is going to be good for anybody who's an activist, anybody who wants to be active in politics. It really doesn't matter where you're active, to be honest, but you're active in trying to speak against, not trying, you're active in speaking against systematic domination, you're active in speaking against systematic racism, you're active against speaking against environmental racism. There's just so many things I could think of right now. But yeah, if you're somebody who resonates with being a actor for justice, regardless of what kind of justice that is, then this is a reading that will resonate with you. So we're going to jump into it. As I was getting prepared, I already got a lot of messages because cards literally were falling out. So when cards fall out, I can't do anything about that. I was just trying to shuffle my cards and clean them up for the reading. Clear their energy for the reading. But as I did that, and once I was like, getting towards the end of it, things started falling out. And I think that they're very relevant. So first and foremost, we're going to introduce the energy of Martin Luther King Jr. It is his day, and his birthday just passed. So we're going to start with him. The cards that came through, actually, I'm being told to say this first because this was very important. The point of this reading is to talk about the difference between being a negotiator and a challenger, right? So Martin Luther King, the archetype he had as an activist was to be a negotiator. He negotiated with the white man. He negotiated with the colonizers. He negotiated with the government in order to get his message across and in order to seek change within the civil rights movement. Whereas Malcolm X was a challenger. He challenged the government, he challenged the police, he challenged the white man. And he honestly could give a fuck less about how he talked. Like he really did not care about who he was offending. Whereas Martin Luther King Jr. was somebody, like I said, who was a negotiator. He was all about finding a balance, finding an easy medium, finding a way to kind of like make both parties happy, which has its pros and cons. It has its pros and cons. But Malcolm X's archetype of being a challenger also has its pros and cons. So that's really what we're getting into, the pros and cons of being a challenger or a negotiator and how to find an easy medium between the both, right? Because I don't think either archetypes are 100% yeah, I just think that there's so many flaws with both archetypes, so it's hard to choose one. So yeah, just trying to find a balance between the two. I haven't thought of a name yet. Maybe we'll think of a name together throughout this reading. But yeah, let's jump into Martin's energy. So with Martin's energy came through the Emperor, which is 4 energy. I hate that my light is not going to show this properly. Oh, there it goes. The Emperor. The Emperor energy is stability. It's all about stabilizing influence. Martin Luther King Jr. was somebody who gave us a lot of stability, like literally. Like if it wasn't for Martin Luther King Jr., a lot of the laws, a lot of the practices, a lot of the things, his energy. I just found a person who's kind of in between, by the way. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Thurgood Marshall. He just came through so strong. Thurgood wants to come play. It looks like we're gonna be getting messages from Martin, Malcolm, and Thurgood because he just came through super strong. Like I am the middle. Like I am the middle. So okay, but yeah, let's focus on this though for a second. So Martin Luther King Jr., like I said, he provided us a lot of stability. He gave the people a lot of hope, but he also gave people um opportunities to stand up for what they believed in, opportunities to speak, to show up quite literally, to these walks, to these movements, to these speeches, and so on and so forth. And this made other people who were less vocal, or other people, a lot of in blacks who were basically like, in their homes, and I don't want to say the word victim, because we are in no way, shape, or form victims, um but technically victims in this case of the word, the opportunity to come out and show and to stand up against their oppressors, to stand up against the white man, the government, their colonizers, right? So that stability, he was very trustworthy. For energy is all about trustworthy. I think that's what I'm trying to get to. Martin Luther King Jr. Was somebody that the people trusted, and it was because he was so stable. It was because he was so wow, there's so many messages coming through. I said that I was only going to do this for about 30 to 40 minutes, and I don't know, it might be a lot longer. We'll see what happens. But yeah, and the other card coming through with his energy was the happy home, the 6 of cups, which is all about temperance, which is all about literally, he made people feel as if their homes could be safe. He made people feel as if they can have a safe home within America. He made people feel as if integration was something that was going to provide happiness, that this was a sense, because I always say, for me, that when people say that they want happiness, what they're really saying is they want freedom, right? Freedom to do whatever they want, freedom to feel however they want. That's and I think that there's all different forms of freedom, but I think that a lot of the times when people are talking about their desire for happiness, really what they're saying is they just want freedom to do what it is that they want. And that's what he provided: this happiness, this freedom, to have homes in America, to integrate in America and become American citizens, without the without the segregation, without the yeah, there's already so many things coming through here, guys. I didn't see this coming, but with Martin Luther King, with this childhood home coming through, it's coming through as one of the negative aspects of Martin, is that, Martin gave all that to the people, but in his home, Martin was very much known to be, I hate to say it, and I know that this is gonna get maybe some comments, but if you're a true Martin Luther King Jr. Fan, or you've truly researched him, and you truly have done is my sound on? Let me just make sure my sound is on, guys. But yeah, if you truly have done any type of research on Martin Luther King, then one of the things you'll know is that Martin Luther King Jr. Yep, the sound is definitely on. Is that Martin Luther King Jr. cheated on his wife. He wasn't stable in his home. He wasn't always trustworthy in his home. Coretta Scott King was a woman who had to deal with a lot of infidelities. She was a woman who had to deal with her husband being away very, very often. She was a woman who had to deal with listening to the rights of the people and what the people deserved, but never really having the opportunity to speak about what she deserved and her own rights as a woman. So one of the topics here, and it's funny because before I did this reading, I knew that it was going to come up strongly, but one of the topics we're going to be talking about very strongly is Black feminism, right? And that's a topic that Malcolm taught us, right? Malcolm taught us that Malcolm was very strong that the Black woman, I'm getting chills, that the Black woman was the most oppressed human in America. It's still a fact to this day. Black women are at the bottom of the ladder, the bottom of the food chain, the bottom of social class. No matter how much intra or intergenerational change that occurs, the black women are still being paid less, treated the worst. As we know, in many cases, when it comes to young Black children, being kidnapped, young Black girls being sex trafficked, etc., etc. These are still topics that still need a lot of activism. They're still topics. They're not topics. These are injustices, systematic injustices, grotesque injustices that need a lot of that need a microscope on them. Right now, there's not even an eye on them, but they need a microscope on them. And Martin Luther King was somebody who, unfortunately, he was so caught up in negotiating with the white man that he turned a blind eye to a lot of other important topics, a lot of other things. Martin Luther King, especially with his emperor energy coming through, he had one task, and his one task was to integrate. And he was willing to negotiate and do what he had to do in order to get integration completed. But unfortunately, as Malcolm pointed out, because Malcolm pointed out a lot of the flaws in Martin Luther King's journey as a civil rights activist, and what he pointed out was that Martin Luther King didn't give a fuck about the women. He didn't give a fuck about the Black woman. He really didn't. He used Black women even more so when we look at Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks really was used as a image, as a figurehead for the civil rights movement. But if we look later into Rosa Parks' life, Rosa Parks was absolutely and entirely dismissed. I don't know if many people know this, but she actually, I'm trying to remember where she lived exactly, and it's slipping my mind, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. She was robbed in her home in like the early 2000s. Like, how did Rosa Parks get robbed? Like, somebody came in her home and robbed her. And that to me is such a disgrace, that one of the biggest figureheads for the civil rights movement, somebody who was so propped up, thrown on the front lines, and she was not protected. And it just goes to show what Malcolm always says, is the Black woman is not protected. She was used as a figurehead. She was used as Martin Luther King. Now, obviously, Martin Luther King was dead by then, so we can't blame Martin Luther King Jr., but we can point out that his model, his civil rights movement did not uplift the Black woman. It did not protect the Black woman. Although integration came from his dream, justice for the Black woman did not come from his dream. So let's talk about Malcolm's energy coming through. Malcolm's energy came through as the magician, because he literally was able to alchemize himself. He was literally able to turn himself. First off, it's the element of surprise, good or bad. And now we all know Malcolm was all about surprises. He would literally stand up and start speaking. And trust me when I tell you, everybody was surprised, shocked, and mouth dropped when Malcolm started to speak. More importantly, he alchemized his image multiple times, and he turned himself from one thing to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, eventually ending up in this activist state, in this activist, he evolved, right? And that's what the magician is all about. Yeah, it's about alchemy, but it's about evolution, right? And it's important because the Seven of Cups comes up. And the Seven of Cups is all about all that glitters isn't gold, look beyond the clouds. He was also the con with Malcolm is that he was impressionable. He was somebody who because he lacked in his root chakra early on in life, because he had so many injustices occur within his life at an early age, he was somebody who was extremely vulnerable to different political and spiritual topics. And because of that, he never really had a chance, especially even later in his life. We see that when he had first started to, like, when he finally decides to break out from the Nation of Islam underneath the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I always hate saying the honorable, because I'm always like, he's not honorable either. And it's funny, let's talk about that. Once he finds out that Elijah Muhammad has all these women, he got all those women pregnant, he stepped out from under him, and he moved into his own thing, and he never really got the chance to kind of like to grow that, for that to turn into something bigger. So with that being said, he was very impressionable. I think it's very important to point out as well, the strength card came through with him, and he was somebody who was very loyal. He was very loyal. Once he went through you got to understand, Malcolm X went through his stages of addiction, especially with that Seven of Cups. He went through his stages of addiction. He went through his stages of sleeping with the white woman. He went through his stages of sleeping around and being a player and all these sorts of things. So by the time he does join the Nation of Islam, and by the time he is speaking about the rights of the Black woman, trust and believe, He is respecting his wife. He may not have been, now you got to understand as well, Malcolm was just a man, he was just a human. So it was hard for him to, he was still leaving his wife in the sense that he had to go fulfill his mission. He had to go fulfill his sole purpose. He had to go fulfill his journey, which did leave her with a lot of lonely nights. There was a lot of misunderstandings in his home, but not one of those misunderstandings was ever infidelities. And all the research I've ever done for Malcolm X, and as we know from a lot of the wiretaps that were put on to Malcolm X's and Martin Luther King's phones, and a lot of the FBI research that was done for them, in a lot of the notes, it literally talks about, there's like literally a quote from one of the FBI agents where it literally says, like, I think they even discussed it in the Malcolm X movie. I can't really quite remember, but they literally make a joke about it where they're literally like, this guy, like Malcolm X is boring. Like he don't even talk to women. Like at least Martin's over here talking to other women and doing a little something exciting. Cause as a detective, as an FBI agent, you're literally sitting around listening for hours and hours and hours at a time. And they would constantly joke that Malcolm X was literally boring to listen to because he literally was on the phone all the time talking about the movement. Like it was all about the movement all the time. So I think that he did have some issues in terms of his relationship because he was so hyper focused on the movement. And I think that's where it comes with the impressionable, right? He was super impressionable. So once he got his mind towards something, especially after he already has a following and after he's already has a name for himself, he's somebody who is very he was very headstrong about fulfilling his purpose as a social activist. He was very headstrong about becoming a figurehead for the Black community. And with that being said, he didn't have time to fool around with women. He didn't have time to fool around on his wife. So, and that was a lot, guys. That was 16 minutes. But I think that it's all very relevant. It's all very, very relevant to what we're going to be getting into and what this means for you, what this means for somebody who wants to go into activism and to fight against social injustices, to fight against systematic domination, and to understand that these men, as much as we idolize them and as much as we romanticize their existence, they were still men, and especially as a Black female, a biracial female, these men still had flaws. And we have to understand that not only are we fighting against colonization, not only are we fighting against the systematic racism, environmental racism, there's so many I can name, and I keep like, oh, we're fighting against the patriarchy. Us females, we're fighting against the patriarchy. We no longer want to live in a world where men make the rules, and where men are our front line and our last decision makers. Like it's not an ideal world. It's really not. There has to be equality, and I think that that's a very, very equality in the genders, equality in the sexes, equality in divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy. One of the biggest things I talk about is the yin and the yang. The yin and the yang, the Black is the feminine energy and the white is the masculine energy. But each one has a dot of each other within itself, and that is where true equality lies. And I think that it's important to point out, the white, the divine masculine energy, that's the seed, that's the magician, right? The seed's been planted by the men, very much so. The seed has been planted, but it's time now to we have to kind of mold together now, and we have to add in these divine feminine aspects of activism. And I think it's very important that these cards came through, because the other cards that fell out of my other deck are the High Priestess and the Four of Wands. And what this energy is saying, what activism needs is some female speakers. We have a lot of Black feminist speakers who came out. We have a lot of Black female figureheads, but unfortunately a lot of their careers are short-lived, and even more so, a lot of their careers did not become relevant until they were passed away. So there are a lot of Black feminist speakers, a lot of Black feminist actors, activists, etc. They didn't really get a lot of the credit that they deserve, or a lot of validation until they got a lot of validation and credit posthumously. So with that being said, is that the energy that has to come through here is there has to be a divine feminine energy, but that divine feminine energy needs to be supported by the divine masculine. There has to be, and Dame Dash talks about this a lot, which I think is funny because I did messages from Aaliyah yesterday. But Dame Dash talks about this a lot. Dame Dash doesn't have a team filled with men. Dame Dash is a man who is backed up by women, and I think that that's very important because Dame Dash will tell you, which by the way, I hope Dame Dash doesn't go off and do something crazy so that he ends up not being somebody I could quote here. But Dame Dash will be the first to tell you that feminine energy is empathetic, feminine energy is nurturing, feminine energy is understanding, feminine energy is extremely intuitive, right? We already came from a place where we had action plans. We already came from a place, we came from centuries, centuries of Black male leaders, but overall, within the past 100 years, within the past 50 to 70 years, we've had these strong Black male leaders who have came in, and not just Black, Indigenous leaders who have came in and really paved the way. They really set up a foundation for us, and that foundation is actually strong. I have to admit, like when it comes to talking about taking down the patriarchy, a lot of that still does deal with the white man. Like, I'm really not trying to attack Martin Luther King Jr. or say we need to take down the Black man in any way, shape, or form. I myself am extremely proud and extremely I admire the movement. I admire the civil rights movement. I admire Malcolm X. It's just that I also don't like to romanticize the fact that, like, I don't want to sit here and believe that model is the only model going forward. When we look at the Black Panthers and we look at the violence that was brought, and we also look at Malcolm X and we look at the violence that was brought upon the Black people, or that was incited in Black people, the violence that was incited in Black people, we know for a fact that gotta go. Like, I'm like, out. Violence is not the answer. That was one thing Martin Luther King was very, very, very strong about. Now, Malcolm X believed that Martin Luther King was scared to incite violence because he thought that he was scared of the white man. To be honest, I can't tell you what Martin Luther King truly thought or truly felt. What I can tell you is that Martin Luther King was a God-fearing man, and he was a man of God. And at the end of the day, even though the Bible says not to cheat on your wife, the Bible very, very much talks about nonviolence. It very much talks about nonviolent revolutions. And I myself talk a lot about, in general, when I talk about my activism, when I do these activism readings, when I'm within my intellectual scope, because I am an urban studies major, I talk very strongly about the fact that I just got like a divine message, 22:59, right when I said that. But yeah, I talk very strongly about the fact that nothing can ever be solved with violence, right? And that I want to move into a place, especially us moving into this age of Aquarius, where it's not revolutions, where we enact evolution, right? And we've seen that naturally occur because as we move into the age of Aquarius is pretty much taking down the age of the Pisces. And the age of the Pisces was very much about the patriarchy, right? These old white men, these old colonizers, and basically they set up shop, they set up the systematic domination. But moving into the age of Aquarius is a time where it's kind of like, yeah, I'm hearing I gotta start shuffling. Moving into the age of Aquarius is very much a time where it's like we're going into this energy where it's like the information that we learned from our oppressors and the information we learned from our Black leaders in the past, we can now use this to evolve, right? We don't have to revolt anymore. And I think that's very strong. Like, it's a very strong message coming from a woman. And I think that in itself is very important, right? Because I'm very much here to tell you guys, if you're into activism, this is what you want to do, then this is funny because this is what's at the bottom. A shock, a crisis, an upheaval, awe-inspiring, dramatic power shifts, unpredictability, a shakeup that's a wake up. I really sincerely believe that it's the time of the time of the female. It's the time where this female energy will come in and it's going to change all that negative, all the negative aspects of the male. Yeah, evolution is the key. Return, the start of a new cycle, right time and regeneration, inevitability, and steady improvements, which is funny because I feel like Martin is just kind of hyping me up on that one. Like, yes, we need stability and stability, and we need non-violence. I apologize, not stability. We need steady improvements. There has to be this steadiness to what we do. Like, we can't stop. The receptive, which is the female energy. I think that's why they wanted me to pull, because there's more words they want me to use. I think they feel like I'm getting caught up in repeating myself a little bit, and I felt that way too. But this is the Yield Yin principle: devoted, patient, supportive, obedient, responsive, intuitive, earthy, and mother. One thing coming strong through with this is that bringing back the practices of our indigenous people, of our indigenous ancestors, because we do live in a world where it is God above, but in most cultures, indigenous cultures, it's God above, and the earth itself is revered as a goddess, right? So God above and she below, he above, she below. And we are humankind in the middle of that. We are a balance between those two very divine energies. This goddess energy, and it's funny because it's coming to me now, but this goddess energy that everybody talks so strongly about, the Black woman is a goddess, and things of that nature. I don't know why these cards are in here like this. But yeah, the Black woman is a goddess and things of that nature. I actually don't support the fact that we're goddesses, because I do believe that I'm a human. Like, I'm not a goddess, I'm a human. But I do want to say 666 is coming out here strong. Yeah, I'm hearing to learn the lessons of the devil, of the white devil. I'm hearing Malcolm X, because I'm hearing, like, wow, there's so many messages coming through. I didn't really expect this to happen. I want to focus on what I'm saying though, because if I don't focus on what I'm saying, then I'll just go off on a tangent. So we are just human, right? But we do need to revere the Black woman as being powerful, as being intuitive, as being a support system, for the movement, right? I actually don't want to say support system, because I believe, like I said, that the males created the foundation. So what I'm hearing is that it's the devotion. We as women need to devote ourselves to working off the foundation that was created before us by Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall, etc., etc. We need to go back into the Rolodex, and we need to pull out the Black female leaders, and we need to learn from them. And more importantly, we need to contribute to what it is that they were doing, and we need to speak up and do what it is that they couldn't do then. The things that Rosa Parks wished she could do, the things that Marie Townsend wished she could do more. I'm hearing even Zora Neale Hurston, somebody I truly revere. And she was somebody who was greatly debilitated by the systematic domination against females, against women, not just, you know, Blacks, but Black women. She actually had to lie about her age in order to get into school. She had to lie about her age up until her death, actually. They skimmed 10 years off of her age, which I think is very important. Like, how she wasn't even able to, she would have lost the opportunity to go to school and to have an education, just simply off the fact that systematic domination made it almost impossible for her to go to school, made it almost impossible for her to get a career. And she had to find her way through. She had to push and pave her way through. She had to break the glass ceilings. And even thinking about, I don't know why, but Obama and Michelle are coming up very strongly here for some reason. But it's like we've seen so much change, but it's like we really have to start. My whole house just shook. Yeah, there's so many messages coming up here. I didn't really see this coming. The 10 of swords is here, and it's the death or ending of a situation, and it's crazy because then is the 6 of wands and then the page of swords. So 10 of swords is talking about the death to the patriarchy in my eyes, considering that's what we're talking about here, but death to the patriarchy. And then we have 6 of wands, which is letter or news coming in, victory or news. Now, this is a male here, and I feel like this is exactly what I was talking about, is like the black man, especially because this is like and it usually says it on the other cards, but this is usually represented by a dark-haired, dark-skinned man. Um he actually looks the way that this card is, and trust me, trust and believe, some of these people are clearly white on these cards, but he actually has more of an even tan coloring. The black man coming in and getting a lot of the victories for us, right? A lot of the indigenous males. And then it's like the page of swords energy. What I'm sensing is there's a lot of female energy, a lot of feminine energy, and it's like, especially the reflecting back over your shoulder. Like I just said, we have to look to the past. But what I'm hearing is that um I've been told a lot that I couldn't get into the things I wanted to get into via in regard to activism because I was too emotional. I was too passionate. Um, in most Eastern practices, passion, anger, they're revered as some of the most powerful emotions because passion and anger are what spark change. Without passion and anger are represented by fire. Without fire, nothing could burn down. And if things don't burn down, then the soil can't be turned anew. In Eastern practices, when soil is burned, when ashes are in soil, etc., etc., it gives life back to the soil. It's the death, life, rebirth paradigm that comes into play. And if that's something you're interested in, I would recommend this book. I always recommend this book. This is a book every woman should read. Actually, on the back, Maya Angelou says, I am grateful to women who run with the wolves. And to Dr. Clarissa Pincola Estes, the work shows the reader how glorious it is to be daring, to be caring, and to be women. Everyone who can read should read this book. That's what Maya Angelou said. So with that being said, is that we need to stop looking over our shoulders and being scared about the black, like, not only because you see it, it's like we're scared that not only is the white man going to come in for us, but that the black man will attack us as well. I mean, there's people right now, especially in our culture, and it's something I'm going to talk about tomorrow, and I hate to name drop, I really do, because I really don't like this guy, but there are people out here like Keith Samuels. I don't even know his name. Kevin Samuels. Yeah, Kevin Samuels, who are kind of creating foundations off attacking the modern woman, and not giving credit to the fact that the modern woman is literally an archetype that was created by the patriarchy, was created by the black man. Like, I'm not going to get too deeply into that because I'm saving my topics on that for later. But my point is that we have a lot of people out there, and especially a lot of black men out there, who don't support us, who don't give us the empathy that we've given them, especially thinking back to the plantation days, like the empathy that the black woman had to give her black counterpart, her black husband, her black brother, her black son, um her supposed protector, and that unfortunate, and who was unfortunately himself being a victim to the oppressor, but and her having to excuse the fact that he could not or would not stand up for her. And now living in this world where we have more freedom and we have more rights, so it's assumed that we're just supposed to know better. We're just supposed to do better. And I'm saying we because, to be honest, I have an education, I'm intelligent, whatever it may be, but at the end of the day, I have to be honest, I have a little bit of white privilege. I am biracial. I'm not going to lie about that. I understand that, and I'm very, like, cognizant of that. Um But yeah, it's just so disheartening. That part makes me very, very, very sad. It makes me very sad that there are literal movements out here that that degrade women and degrade the fact that women don't choose to be intellectual, that women don't choose different paths for themselves. This ideal that, women enjoy being sex workers or enjoy having to marry rich men still. And it's very sad. It's very sad. And even if you find a woman who says that like that's her mentality and that's what she believes and et cetera, we still have to look at socialization. We still have to look at the fact that a lot of that is due to brainwash. A lot of that is due to the fact that they just were not taught any differently. And they do not have, especially exactly how it is when I talk about in all my videos about how the Black man doesn't have the time or the resources in order to do better for themselves, the Black man within the inner city, within urban society, how they are robbed of the time and resources. Females, feminine, the Black female, the modern female is also being robbed of those same time and resources in order for her to dig deep within herself and to strengthen her root chakra enough to have an identity, to know better than to sell her body, to know better than to think that her body is her biggest asset. Like, I don't know where they think, I don't know where men like Keith or Kevin, drop in the comments if you guys know who I'm talking about, because I really don't know this man's name. Whatever, K Samuels, that they really believe that that it's the desired way of life. If you really broke it down to most of those women and helped them understand, truly empathized and helped them understand the understanding Four of Wands, I put money on it, they wouldn't choose to believe that their bodies are their best asset. If you really had a conversation with most women and really expressed to them that they have more to offer to a relationship, to the earth, to a man than their bodies, I think they would choose differently. I think there's a very, 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 very small percentage of women who would still choose to over idolize their bodies, to only tend to their bodies or tend to their physical contributions to relationships into this world. Um, the reason women contribute so much of their bodies and the reason that women believe their bodies are such a big asset is because that is what society has told them. That's what society has told us. So, yeah, with the Six of Pentacles, it's coming through as a raise, raising money. But if you see here, it's him. He's holding the scales of justice and he's giving money to the poor. And I think that that's very relevant to what I'm talking about, because it's on top of the Nine of Swords, and the Nine of Swords is about fears and frustrations and letting go of emotions. And what I'm hearing is that it's not about letting go of the emotions in the sense that I'm saying that you need to purge them completely, but you do need to check them. You need to check them enough in order to get through an argument, check them enough to get through to critically think through something. I think that's kind of seen even here what I'm doing. Like, obviously I'm emotional, right? If I wasn't emotional, I wouldn't be up here right now. That's just a fact. But I'm not so emotional to a point where where I'm debilitated, where I'm getting in my bed. I knew this was going to go longer than I thought it was. Where I'm debilitated to a point where I need to get in bed and go to sleep and escape from, like, there's an escapism that occurs within the minds of women, within the minds of the inner city Black male. That's where drugs come into play. That's where promiscuous sex comes into play, addiction comes into play, things of that nature, alcohol, trying to escape from these emotions. So basically what I'm hearing is that with the proper education, because the Hierophant is here, which is 5 energy, with the proper education, with the proper critical thinking, with the proper arguments, male or female, divine feminine or divine masculine, cisgender male, cisgender female, transgender male or transgender female. I think there's asexual too. I just felt the need to say it, but I really don't know about all of them, guys. I'm still on a learning curve as far as is concerned with pronouns and understanding the different words to use there, but it doesn't matter who you are. getting an education on what it is that you want to stand up for, getting an education on what it is that you want to speak out against. Like I said in the beginning here, it doesn't matter what kind of justice you're trying to speak against. The point is very much so to have a good education. Um, I'm hearing for a lot, if you're somebody who's just sparked by what I'm saying and you have something to say, but you just didn't realize you were allowed to say it. I'm hearing for you, check philosophy, learn how to make an argument. I don't even care if you go to school, just go learn about it. Go watch a few philosophy courses on YouTube and learn how to make a strong argument. In my book, Love Sickness, I talk very briefly about the difference between a subjective argument and an objective argument. A subjective argument sounds something like this: I've only seen pink pigs, so that means all pigs are pink. That's not a fact. That is a subjective argument. Now, what we know about subjective arguments is that the police, detectives, the government, they use subjective arguments all the time. For example, we have a receipt from this place. We have cell towers showing you were at in this location, and the body was found where the place from the receipt and by where the cell towers are located. You were in that general vicinity of where the body was found. We don't have any witnesses. We don't have any actual facts, but what we know, subjectively speaking, is that most people, like, especially in a case where it's like, let's just zero in real quick so I can make sure this is very specific. Wife goes missing, wife ends up dead. As you know, we always look to the husband. Subjective wise, detectives, everybody, they look to the husband, the boyfriend. In our past, we know that the husband is usually the person to kill the wife, and because we have this subjective evidence and our subjective experience, we are going to take you to trial. And we are going to ask a jury of 12 to go ahead and convict you. And most of the time, the jury will, because with the subjective argument from a detective and a district attorney, and subjective witnesses that say, well, he was kind of mean to her, well, he was da da da, they can convict somebody. But an objective argument is, we found the gun had your fingerprints on it, and we have a video of you shooting her in the head. We have a video of you placing her body in the dumpster. Those are smoking guns. That's an objective argument. Those are facts. We have you on video camera. We have your physical fingerprints. We have physical evidence, right? But the point is that both sides of the argument are trying to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that somebody is guilty of something. So the point of what I'm trying to say is that philosophy, that's actually all pre-law students, and even detectives have to take classes in, not detectives necessarily in all states, but some states, classes in philosophy, because philosophy is what teaches you how to debate. Philosophy is what teaches you how to build those arguments. So what I'm hearing is that regardless of what we need to do collectively, we need to learn how to make stronger arguments. We need to learn how to make objective arguments. Your arguments could be subjective. Honestly, I don't care. If you're fighting against an injustice that needs to be fought against and you can create a strong subjective argument, fucking go for it. But I believe more in the power of objective arguments. But yeah, I'm hearing with the Hierophant, it's all about that. It's all about learning how to create, especially it's official building or an official situation. It's no longer staying in your mind, and it's actually creating these arguments and bringing them out into the real world. Whew, guys, this reading was heavy. I don't know what's going to happen with this. This is the words of advice I was trying to get. Intimacy came through. Excuse me. So I'm going to read intimacy. Yeah, I'm going to read these three. So these are the words of encouragement: intimacy, challenge, and celebration. Intentions and opportunity. Damn, there's so many that just came through. Damn, guys. And then these cards right here are going to be about how long or the timing you should look out for like when you should start your activism, when you should get out there, when you should really start to make a stand. So let's start over here with the words of encouragement. First that came through was the intimacy. I feel like I want to read them intuitively, but I feel like I'll just keep going and going and going and going. And I just said so much. I didn't intend for this to go this way. I didn't know how it was going to go, but it is what it is. So let's see exactly what they want you to know. So with the intimacy card, it says sharing of feelings in a safe and close relationship are highlighted. You may find yourself drawn to someone with a deepening of emotions between you. This energy relates to romantic relationships as well as friendships. A passion, a cause, hobby, or path is also indicated by this card, and you may find yourself more involved or even find something rather special in these areas. Justice is your area. Get more involved. Validation. What I say? Validation, validation. Validation is a very strong factor at present, both seeking it and receiving it. So make sure your confidence is in check and not completely invested in the opinions of others. Mind your actions connected with intimate relationships. There is a risk of becoming too dependent, and your self-respect could come under a bit of a battering while trying to please others. What did I talk about the feminine energy? Feminine energy is now coming in and taking a stand. It's taking a stand. We no longer want to be known as being these dependent and insecure beings. We want to have self-respect. We want to be self-sufficient beings. And not only do we want to be self-sufficient, but we want to go ahead and we want to be leaders. We want to be leaders, forerunners, front of the line, front of the line. Sorry, body language means that front of the line. My head is shaking. Yes. Affirmation. It is safe to draw closer. So I think that it's very important. Is what I said about being scared to get too close to something because you feel like you're too emotional about it. It is safe to draw closer. And the keywords are intimacy, validation, confidence, self-respect, dilemma, and dependence. Draw closer, but make sure when you're drawing closer with intentions. With intentions. So I'm actually going to read intentions next. It's actually funny because I think it's next in the book. No, intuition's next. That's funny though, intuition's next. I think that's just like a nice little reminder, guys, of the feminine energy and know when to use your intuition, regardless of what gender you are. With the intentions coming through, it is time to review your true purpose in relation to the matter at hand. This will assist you in seeing the possible silver lining or at least new possibilities, which will give you a positive direction and will eventually match your original intentions. This will assist you in seeing the possible silver lining or new possibilities, which will give you a positive direction and eventually match your original intentions. Regardless of how much emotion is blinding you, the intent is to have justice for all, right? That's what Martin Luther King's dream is. Justice for all, justice and liberty for all. The intentions of those around you also need to be explored. You would be wise to make sure you truly understand the people around you and their effects on the present as well as the immediate past. I'm going to read that again. You would be wise to make sure you truly understand the people around you and their effects on the present as well as the immediate past. You may be satisfied with what you currently enjoy, but there is a part of you that longs for more. Before stepping it forward, it would be wise to refocus your intentions and look within and appreciate your own talents and skills and avoid perfectionism and becoming competitive. These traits will only dilute the wonderful gifts you possess. It's funny because a lot of this in the intimacy are talking about the negative traits of the female, which are dependency, jealousy, competitiveness. It's saying to eradicate these. I'm hearing that this is going to end up being very important for female activists. But yeah, the affirmation you can use is my intentions and purpose are true. And the keywords are intention, purpose, self-acceptance, positivity, and over perfectionism. I'm hearing to go to the opportunity next because it came right up. The opportunity is An opportunity is being presented, but perseverance and a bit more hard work are required. Don't give up. What did I say? You need to go back to school. You need to get some strength, like learn how to strengthen your argument. It's a good indication to apply for positions and projects, to ask for things you want, and to sign contracts and make agreements. The energy should be favorable for these. Your endurance will be tested, and the chance may arise to extend and grow in many ways that may not have been possible before. Greater emotional strength is required, so don't let yourself get carried away too quickly with any feelings you experience in the first instance. Oh, that's crazy. I pulled both Jasmine cards. My name is Jasmine. This is the Chinese star jasmine and then the night blooming jasmine. But on the opportunity card, it says the night blooming jasmine signifies that we have overlooked those close to us, their skills, positive attributes, and personal wisdom. Be careful you are not seeking greener pastures while neglecting your own valuable garden or treasures. I can't make this shit up, guys. I really can't. The affirmation is I am ready for what may come. And the keywords are opportunity, perseverance, endurance, resourcefulness, and neglect. I'm hearing to read the challenge, then the celebration. So let's read challenge. You need to dig a little deeper in a certain situation, but the rewards and the experience gained will be worth it. What did I say? Things may seem unsolvable or insurmountable, but there is a way forward, and you can do this because even now your inner strength has not been fully used. That's funny because the card that came out in the beginning was about Malcolm, and I think that's with the strength card, and I think that's very interesting to what I said about the foundation. The foundation that they created for us, it's not been utilized properly. There's not been people out here really advancing on that foundation that Martin Malcolm Thurgood really created for us. And this is the time. This is very much the time. We have more strength to call upon. We can call upon our past leaders, our past leaders, in order to find new and more innovative ways to continue the fight. So dreams are very important, and you would be well advised to keep a dream journal so you can explore each layer of your dreams later on. Overall, the energy of this flower is that of a difficult or challenging situation, which can actually be resolved, and in the end, there will be much to be gained by your perseverance. Those working with guides or allies may find them a little obscure or hard to understand, and you will need to work a little more to connect with them. I think that's interesting because of what I talked about. This card literally is challenge, and I wasn't realizing that. But what did I say in the beginning? We're talking about challengers versus negotiators. So this is fine. This is literally what it's talking about. Find the balance. I'm hearing two things. One, you should watch my video on strength. It's a TikTok video, but I think I should upload it here onto YouTube, and I will, and I'll put it in the description. But more importantly, what I'm hearing is that you should also check out my video I just did about on my birthday. I recorded a video. I won't get into why, but I think I'll put that up here too as well in the description. And the affirmation is I have the strength and the will to do this. And the keywords are challenge, inner strength, guides, dreams, perseverance, and apathy. And there's dragon fruit here. And it's funny because it talks about the guides and the allies. Let's just take out the allies real quick. Let's forget about negotiating with the government real quick, even though we know that that's something that will have to be done, whatever, so on and so forth. We'll have to find a middle ground in order to really truly evolve and to truly get the justice we deserve. But this is talking about using the guides, right? Dragons in Chinese mythology are considered to be the beings that move in between earth and the heavens. They're messengers from heaven. So what I'm hearing is that you should really look into your ancestry. It's one of my biggest topics I talk about in general is if you're out here doing any of this work, it's good to know where your lineage goes. So not only strengthening your arguments for the collective, but you need to strengthen because that's knowledge, right? Strengthen in knowledge and learning more. But you also need to learn more about your history and learn more about your bloodline. Yeah. And then celebration. The time is upon you to rejoice and celebrate. There will be news soon of an addition to the family or to your sphere of friends, and overall, a reason to be joyful. Gifts are indicated too, both giving and receiving, as well as obtaining or giving assistance from those close to you. The Hierophant, teaching, giving, obtaining, or giving lessons from those close to you. You may find a gift in the form of information, the Hierophant, or opportunity, which may have seemed once unobtainable. Take time to enjoy your friendships. If there have been difficulties, face them with unconditional love, no matter what the eventual outcome. You may find the need to reflect on what and who you value in your life. What did I talk about? About valuing more than our bodies, valuing our minds, our souls. Like, oh, we are full faceted beings, male or female, I don't care. Emptiness and dissatisfaction can be challenges presented by this flower. I actually want to point that out, as I actually my video tomorrow coming out is about how men don't value themselves, how they think of themselves just as seeds, and that's why they're out here in these polygamous relationships and not settling down and not being faithful to women. It's because they themselves, as much as men, we can only see in others what we see in ourselves, right? So if a man accuses a woman of using her body to advance in her career or advance in life, it's probably because a man is doing the same subconsciously. Men do it all the time. Men can plant seeds with so many women, so they literally will plant seed after seed after seed after seed in order to try to find value in themselves. You're worth more than your seed as well. And the affirmation: I am open to joy, friendship, and unconditional love. And the keywords are celebration, unconditional love, friendship, and emptiness. Yeah, emptiness. It's an emptiness inside both, regardless of what gender you are. Yeah, and then let's look at the timing. Those messages are super strong. I think that was super obvious why all of those fell out. Super on point. The new moon in Sagittarius and the full moon. New moon in Sagittarius says, whatever is coming your way, it looks set to put a smile on your face. The new moon in Sagittarius can mark the restart of fun after a period of feeling low. The energy is adventurous and even willing to take a few risks. But be careful you don't bet the farm on something here, as the wheel of fortune is still spinning. This card is about exploring life metaphorically by exchanging big ideas with others or just thinking about your own philosophies. Sagittarius is all about philosophy. I'm a Sagittarius. So Sagittarius literally rules philosophy. They are the philosophers of the zodiac. So I don't care who you are, you need to look into philosophy. And not just white men's philosophy. Find Black philosophers. Find indigenous philosophers. Perhaps it is time to change your mind about something important. It can also signal that a trip away is coming up, if that's something you're working to achieve. But the overall message of this card is that whatever happens next will be some sort of gift, even if that simply means widening your worldview. Attune to the moon, or an affirmation you can use. An affirmation you can use is count your blessings, literally. Write them down or say them out loud. Yeah, it's a time to be grateful. Be grateful of the foundation that was laid out before you. I think it said in one of the other cards, it said taking a stock of how the people around you have contributed not only to your present circumstances, but the immediate past. Yeah. And then additional meanings for this card. You need to laugh more. I think that's very interesting because I talked here a lot about, like, being emotional, so on and so forth. You can be emotional and you can be headstrong about it, but you have to find, I think I laughed a couple times here. I think I did. In most of my readings, I laugh. I laugh at myself. I laugh at what's going on. At the end of the day, social injustice is serious, but at the end of the day, my heart can only take so much. I have to smile about certain things. I have to be lighthearted about certain things, and I have to move through this in a way that is I have to be headstrong, but I have to be light on my feet. If not, my head will be so strong that it will dig me into the soil and I won't be able to move forward. That was a really good metaphor. A really good metaphor. Yeah. This is a wonderful time to start a course of study or teaching. This Hierophant, guys, and don't be narrow-minded. Start a week of gratitude practice. via Facebook, a journal, or a blog. Yeah, I always say this. You don't got to blog, you don't got to write, but yeah, go find a whole bunch of grateful memes and say, you know what, I'm going to post one of these memes on my Facebook every single day for the next 30 days. Like, continuing a gratitude process, a gratitude practice is very essential to being disciplined, and it's very significant to evolving spiritually, because we want to evolve. We have to remember that no matter what we do, I think that's the point, and it's like a little Ecclesiastes what I'm going to say, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, we're all going to die. So even if you help them, even if you go, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are dead. They can't live forever. It comes back to what I talked about in the beginning. We are all human. We can't, even if you make all these changes for the future generations, eventually you will die. So just be grateful and just be happy you're here, and make sure that you're living, right? You're not so invested and taking it so serious that that you can't yeah. Don't take it so serious that it debilitates your life. Kind of like what Malcolm X did. You know, he lost valuable time with his family. He lost valuable time with his loved ones because he took it so serious. So find that balance between cheating on your wife and leaving your wife home for weeks at a time because you're off, you know, at these very special meetings. And I said that only because we were talking about men, but you know what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. Like, your family, go and be, don't cheat on your family. It's not about cheating and da da da, but it's like, you have to find that easy medium. You guys know what I'm talking about. I'm not about to sit here and correct myself 10 million times with these pronouns. I'm really not. I try my best. Sagittarius is the sign of fun, travel, exploration, and great cosmic quest. It's the sign of big ideas. Its energy is expansive, upbeat, lucky, and divine, which is funny because the next card is surrender to the divine. The new moon in Sagittarius exudes all this, as does the card whenever you draw it. Nothing is set in stone with Sagittarius, and an optimistic energy could attract all manner of good things if you tap into the energy by expecting the best. I think that was pretty on point. Let's read this full moon, and then I think I'm going to close it off here, guys. I said this was not going to be an hour, and here we are at an hour. The word climax brings all sorts of ideas and images to mind. Agreed? But it really is the feeling of this card. Life is coming to a head, a point, a conclusion, or a turning point. The turning point. There may be some kind of change and possibly even some sort of emotional explosion. Tune into your emotions now and see what they're telling you. They are very likely to close. This book, I swear, these were written by people in different countries. This is not how you would say this. The English in these books is like, it's like, no. They're probably close to the surface no matter when in the moon cycle you've pulled this card. Matters will soon conclude and you'll find out whether or not your wishes are going to come true. The odds are in your favor as this is a positive card, but you may need to work harder than usual to keep cool as events unfold. Yeah. The thing is, I was kind of like, we're talking and I'm talking metaphorically a lot here, but the truth is that if you're really about to be out here, like, I gotta be honest, I even felt it when I said that things I said about Kay Samuels and stuff. You have to be ready for backlash. You have to be ready for I'm just gonna give you a quick reminder is that I always say this, say for example, you want to go cure cancer, right? Take out of the social injustice, take out of the social justice. I like to use medicine as an example because you would believe that no matter what, a scientist or somebody who's practicing medicine is always going to be supported, right? But that's not the truth. Say you go and you decide you're you're a scientist and you want to go cure cancer. There's going to be thousands of people who say to you, well, why not sickle cell anemia? Well, why not lupus? Because you didn't feel strongly about lupus or sickle cell anemia. You felt strongly about cancer. So you need to understand that there's always going to be people, like even me saying about what's his face? I really can't. I should really Google this guy's name. But the truth is, if he feels strongly about speaking against the what he has seen to be the modern woman, um, from what I understand, he does have a background in sociology. Um, I have a background in sociology. I'm an urban studies major. My original degree is in political science. Um, but I felt strongly about different aspects. He felt strongly about, I'm trying to be polite here. He felt strongly about the fact that women are using their bodies and believe their bodies are assets. And that there are women out there who use men, financially, physically, spiritually. There are. I can't say he's wrong. He's right. There are. Um, he felt strongly about that, and that's his cause. That's his path to walk in. I could be technically an adversary of his just off the fact that my beliefs and the things I'm out here fighting for counteract with a lot of the things he says. That's just, it is what it is. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't personally hate the guy. Like, I could care less about his life. But the point I'm trying to make is that he would never anger me. Like, anger for me, passion for me comes from, you know, my main cause, my main purpose. Um, I can never and I should never allow, and you should never and can't and whatever allow, one person's word, one person's movement to set you off your cool, to make you go so out of character, to pull you out of character. And that's what Martin Luther King talks about a lot, is really talking about the nonviolence. We don't want to be in a state of like like we shouldn't be fighting any justices anxiously, or if we feel personally attacked, you know what I mean? First off, and I think that's a very interesting thing too, is like I don't resonate with the archetype that he talks about, you know what I mean? Like, I don't resonate with that kind of woman. I'm not that kind of woman. um so it's easy for me not to like take it so like personally. I want to stand up for women generally because, as we can see here, I'm an obvious feminist and an obvious Black feminist at that. So it's like, obviously I'm going to take a stand, and my stand, like I said, naturally goes against the stand he's taken for the Black man, or for the man in general, because I don't think it's really about Black men for him, but I think he calls them high value men or something like that. He reveres the high valued man. So yeah, I think you get my point there. And then attuned to the moon, I am getting the answers I need. And the additional meanings for this card are: a wish you made may be about to come true. It's make or break time. There could be a sense of madness in the air. Breathe deep and stay calm. And you may need to forgive someone to release negative energy. That's exactly what I'm saying. Forgiveness, like compassion, kindness. If I ever had a chance to talk to that man, I would love to have a normal conversation with him, as long as I was being met with empathy, as long as I was being met with compassion, as long as I'm not being called out of my name. I can release the negative energy that is insecure or feels unworthy of handling a conversation with him. And I'm bringing that up because I think that that's what happens a lot, is that we feel unworthy or too insecure to have the big conversations to make change happen. And it's time to let go of the past and move on. Actually, I'm actually going to give him that. This is one thing I heard in one of his videos, which, by the way, I want to point out here, guys, I've never clicked on one of his videos and listened to it. The only videos that I've heard from him, or the reason I've heard of him, is like from men who listen to him, because everybody in my life, in my personal circle, knows what I believe in, and they know what I like. So I often get told about him and I often get showed his like I'm shown his videos. I just want to point that out. Like that's why it's hard for me to say too much about him because I only know what I've been shown. So, but I want to point out that in one of his videos he did say this and I thought that it was very relevant is that he said something about how, in the middle of arguments, a lot of the times women will bring up what happens in their past relationships. You know what I mean? Like they'll be with a good man, and then the good man will do something that triggers a behavior in them, and because the woman lacks the self awareness. Or even the diagnosis, because I have to be honest, I have listened to some of these women that he does talk to, and I have to be honest, they're mentally ill. Like it is a fact. Um, they lack the diagnosis or the self-awareness, the cognizance to pretty much like check their triggers. So they're triggered by something somebody does, and then as a result they're going down their whole past of how many times that's happened to them in the past and the reasons this is hurtful to them, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like they don't give a fuck, to be honest. And I very much understand that, because as a woman I feel like that's something men and females do. Like when he said that, it resonated so deeply with me, because I have dated men who actually I really don't date. I've had very long-term situations with only with a very, very few amount of people. But in my past, there's two men I could think of specifically, my two longest, biggest situations. And they both always like kind of like pointed out like, like if I say something or ask a question, it's, "Oh, they bring up their whole past situation, their past lovers who were untrustworthy and so on and so forth, and not understanding and non-empathetic and not devoted and not loyal enough." And it's like, what the fuck does that have to do with me? Like, I'm my own human being. I've never been anything but patient, kind, and understanding to you. So there is no reason for you to believe that I'm gonna be anything but those things going forward. Like everything else is in your mind. So I want to point out that yes, it's time to let go of the past and move on. Like we have to let go of the past. Like we have to, even when we're talking, I'm hearing a lot about like the white devil, the white oppressors, these things of that nature. Like it's one thing I do hear often, and I know it's hard to understand, but you guys have to understand that in urban studies, like it's not we learn. I observed, right? And you would be shocked. There's actually a lot of white people who major in urban studies, and they don't know that they have white privilege. Like you're going to get annoyed at me, I know, because it's hard to hear, but they do not know about a lot of the issues that their ancestors created. Like they live in white privilege. They live in these bubbled situations, these protected, these sheltered situations. So then they go off into the world and then they meet, indigenous people or people of color who are treating them like they're oppressors themselves. It's like, I hate to say it, but it's kind of how you make it. I learned in school how to make an oppressor is for five black people to gang up on a white kid and tell him about how evil his ancestors are. It's not a you could be complicit in turning people into the very thing you're scared of. And that's kind of my point, is like in that Keith Samuel guys is saying is that when you keep bringing up the past events of other persons to one person, eventually that person is going to be like, well, fuck it, since you're so used to this treatment, let me just treat you like this. Right? So yeah. And then the full moon marks the climax of the lunar cycle, and making this card something of a power card. The full moon is often the time when answers are given to questions asked during the new moon, and pulling this card at any time in the lunar cycle suggests answers will be coming your way before too long. So yeah, with these timing things is the luck on your side in the Sagittarius. Um, take what resonates and leave what doesn't from everything I just said, generally speaking. But as far as to answer when the time is, we're in a full moon. I'm a Sagittarius. Luck is on your side. They're saying the time is now. The time is now. Whenever you're ready, do it. Start putting out your feelers for some classes, for some, learning opportunities to learn more. But the time is now. I'm gonna close this off, guys. This like was a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I hope this reaches you in good health and high spirits. I am going to yeah, sign off. I'm definitely signing off. Yeah, bye.